talked about kids.
Yeah, true. But just so, you guys know, because you guys are, beautiful women. You guys are still like women, right? But men, right? Men see a baddie, we think like, I'm going to get her pregnant. That's what men think when they see a baddie.
Stop scrolling, because what just played out publicly feels less like an interview and more like a setup finally being exposed. Fans expected a conversation. What they got instead was humiliation in real time. And now Evelyn Lozada is breaking down while pointing fingers directly at the game. And the internet. It's not being gentle. For the first time, people are watching Evelyn Lozada react not as a reality star, but as a mother who believes her daughter was played, trapped, and publicly embarrassed. Her daughter, Shanice Hairston, thought she was entering something real, something private, something protected. Instead, she walked into a moment that made it painfully clear she was never special in the way she believed. And the game made sure everyone knew it. What's going viral isn't just what he said. It's how he said it. Calm. Casual. Almost entertained. While Shani sat there trying to process the collapse of expectations she had built in her head, the game looked comfortable dismantling them piece by piece. No anger, no apology, just honesty. The kind that cuts deeper because it comes too late. That's when fans started asking the real question. Was this an interview? Or was this a public lesson? Because the way the game framed it, Shanice wasn't a partner. She was a situation, a moment, a baddie he never planned to build with. And when he admitted that openly, on her platform, the room shifted. You could hear it in her voice. You could see it in her face. Confusion, disbelief, embarrassment. And now Evelyn Lozada is furious. She's watching the footage the same way the rest of the internet is, in 4K clarity, realizing her daughter ended up in the exact situation she tried to avoid her whole life. A man who didn't want commitment, a pregnancy that changed everything, and a narrative she didn't control. But here's where it gets messy. The internet isn't just blaming the game, they're blaming Evelyn too. People are asking how a woman with her history, her experience, her proximity to this man's past, didn't see this coming, didn't warn her daughter, didn't shut this down before it reached this point. And that question is haunting the entire conversation, because if Evelyn knew how the game moved, why didn't Shanice? And if Shanice knew his reputation, why did she believe she'd be treated differently? This isn't just about a breakup. It's about expectations versus reality. It's about a man who admits he never planned to play house, and a woman who thought pregnancy meant permanence. And now that truth is out, loud, public, and impossible to walk back. This story isn't cooling down. It's igniting. Hashtag celebrity T. Hashtag podcast drama. Hashtag reality TV mess. From the very first minutes of the conversation, the power dynamic was clear. And it wasn't in Shanice Hairston's favour. What was supposed to feel like an open, honest sit-down slowly revealed itself as something much colder. The game didn't come defensive. He didn't come emotional. He came comfortable. Comfortable enough to say things most men would never dare say in front of the woman they got pregnant, let alone in front of her mother, Evelyn Lozada. That comfort is what made fans uneasy. Because when someone is truly remorseful, they tread lightly. The game didn't. He spoke like a man who felt in control of the narrative, like someone who knew the truth, his truth, would land no matter how it made anyone else feel. And that's when the interview stopped being mutual and started feeling like a one-sided reckoning. As the conversation went on, Shanice tried to explain her expectations, the promises she believed were made, the future she thought was being built. You could hear her trying to rationalize it out loud, almost hoping that saying it would make it real. But every time she leaned in emotionally, the game leaned back mentally. He didn't meet her where she was. He redirected, he reframed, he reminded her, without raising his voice, that she was never above the program. And that phrase? That's what broke the internet, because the program wasn't about rules. It was about control. It was the game reminding everyone in the room that he decides how far things go, how serious they get, and who gets permanence. Pregnancy didn't change that for him. And watching Shanice realize that in real time was painful. Her voice cracked. Her composure slipped. And still the conversation kept moving forward. That's when fans started saying the quiet part out loud. This didn't feel like honesty. It felt like humiliation. And the most uncomfortable layer. Evelyn was sitting right there, not interrupting, not stopping it, watching her daughter process disappointment publicly, while a man with a long, well-documented reputation explained why commitment was never on the table. For viewers, that silence felt deafening. And it raised a brutal question that no one wanted to ask. Why wasn't this conversation stopped? The interview revealed something else too. Shanice wasn't ignorant. She knew the relationship was hidden. She knew it wasn't public. She knew it wasn't a good look. But somewhere along the way, the game gave her just enough hope to believe she was different. And when that hope collided with reality, the fallout was immediate and visible. This is why fans are calling it a trap. Not because she didn't have agency, but because expectation was managed against her. Words were given, promises were implied. And once pregnancy entered the picture, she expected stability. He expected nothing to change. And that disconnect is the heart of this entire mess. By the time the interview wrapped, it was clear the game walked away unbothered. Shanice walked away exposed, and Evelyn Lozada walked away realizing her daughter had learned a lesson the hardest way possible, in front of the world. This wasn't a conversation between equals. It was a reminder of who had the leverage all along. #podcast drama, #power dynamics, #celebrity mess. This is the moment fans can't stop replaying. The line that turned discomfort into outrage. When the game explained how men think when they see a baddie, the air in the room shifted instantly. Not because it was shocking, but because it was too honest. He didn't dress it up. He didn't soften it. He said it plainly, like it was normal, like it was obvious, like everyone should already know the rules. And that's when reality crashed in for Shanice. Because everything she believed was happening, the late-night talks, the emotional closeness, the future she thought was forming, suddenly got reduced to a category. Not partnership, not commitment, attraction, impulse, desire without intention. And watching her process that in real time was painful. Her voice tightened. Her answers slowed. You could hear the realizations settling in. Pregnancy in her mind meant anchoring. Pregnancy in his mind meant nothing changed. That disconnect is the core of this entire story. For Shanice, becoming pregnant felt like crossing into seriousness, like moving from hidden to permanent. For the game, it was never a promise. It was never a plan. And when he admitted that openly, on a public platform, fans felt like they were watching a private heartbreak happen without consent. This is why people are calling it cruel. Because even if it's his truth, timing matters, context matters. And saying it there, that way, while she sat inches away trying to hold herself together, felt unnecessary. It felt like power being exercised, not honesty being shared. What made it worse is how the game talked about marriage. He framed commitment as optional, happiness as subjective, stability as something other people chase, not him. And while he spoke, fans noticed something unsettling. He kept glancing at Shanice, watching her reactions, measuring her discomfort. It didn't feel accidental. It felt like he knew exactly what she wanted, and exactly why she wasn't getting it. That's when viewers started saying the quiet part out loud. He knew she wanted more. He knew she wanted a family. And he knew pregnancy would tie her to him, not the other way around. And still, the relationship continued. This is why so many people believe Shanice wasn't just unlucky, she was misled. Not because she's a child, Not because she lacked intelligence, but because hope was fed just enough to keep her invested while commitment was never actually on the table. And now that truth is public, the baddie comment didn't just expose his mindset, it exposed the imbalance. One person was planning, the other was passing time. And when time ran out, only one of them paid the emotional cost. By the end of this part of the interview, fans weren't asking if Shanice should have known better. They were asking why the game chose to say it like that, in front of her, for the world to watch. Because honesty without care isn't just truth, it's damage. # celebrity podcast, # relationship illusions, # hard truths. This is where the story gets even heavier, because once the interview clips started circulating, Evelyn Lozada wasn't watching as a commentator. She was watching as a mother. And according to people close to her, seeing the conversation play back in full clarity hit different. Every pause, every look, every moment where her daughter tried to hold it together while the game spoke without hesitation. That's when the tears came, because in hindsight the signs were there. And that's what hurts the most. Shanice Hairston had tried to avoid becoming the very thing she feared. She stayed private. She didn't post. She didn't flex a relationship that wasn't solid. She thought discretion would protect her. Instead, it left her vulnerable when the truth came out publicly, without warning. And now the internet is doing what it always does. They're not just criticizing the game, they're pointing fingers at Evelyn. People are asking how a woman with her experience, her history, her proximity to this man's past, her knowledge of how these dynamics play out, didn't step in sooner, didn't warn her daughter harder, didn't shut it down before it reached this point. For some viewers, that question feels fair. For others, it feels cruel, because hindsight is sharp. And parenting in real time is not a highlight reel. What's undeniable is this. Evelyn is watching her daughter relive disappointment publicly. A lesson learned the hard way, in front of millions. And while critics debate what she should have done, she's dealing with the reality of seeing her child hurt. Not hypothetically, but visibly. The internet, meanwhile, eyes split. Some say Evelyn failed to break the cycle. Others say cycles don't break just because someone wants them to. They break when power dynamics change. And in this situation, the power never shifted. Because the game controlled the pace. He controlled the framing. And he controlled the moment the truth came out. That's why this conversation keeps circling back to responsibility. Yes, Shanice is an adult. Yes, choices were made. But context matters. Promises don't have to be written to be believed. Expectations don't have to be spoken to be formed. And when someone with influence knows exactly what the other person wants, and continues anyway, accountability doesn't disappear just because honesty shows up late. This is why Evelyn's reaction matters. Not because it erases what happened, but because it exposes the emotional cost after the camera's cut. Watching your child realize she wasn't different. Watching her understand she was never the exception. Watching her process that truth publicly. That's a pain no commentary can soften. And now the story sits at a crossroads, not about blame, but about lessons. About how reputation, power, and timing collide. About how silence can be mistaken for safety. And about how easily expectation can be shaped by someone who never planned to deliver. This isn't over yet. Because the final question still hangs in the air. And it's the one nobody wants to answer out loud. Could this have been avoided? Or was the outcome locked in the moment expectations were built on hope instead of clarity? A # reality TV drama, # mother and daughter, # hard lessons. This is where the story finally settles. Not into closure, but into reality. After the clips, the backlash, the think pieces, and the finger-pointing, one truth stands out above everything else. This was never about love. It was about expectation. And when expectation meets a man who never intended to deliver, the fallout is always brutal. For Shanice Hairston, the hardest part isn't what the game said. It's what his words confirmed, that she wasn't building toward a future while he was right there with her. She was building alone, and when pregnancy entered the picture, she believed it changed the stakes. He made it clear it didn't. Watching that realization unfold publicly is why so many people felt uncomfortable. Because it wasn't drama, it was disillusionment. And for Evelyn Lozada, this moment cut deeper than criticism ever could. She's not just watching the internet drag her parenting. She's watching her daughter confront the exact cycle she tried to avoid. A cycle of men with power, charm, and zero intention to commit, while women are left holding the consequences. Seeing that play out in 4K, with no way to rewind or protect her child from the commentary, is why her reaction feels raw and emotional. This is the part people don't like to admit. Some situations don't explode because of one bad decision. They unfold slowly, through hope, assumptions, and unspoken promises. And by the time clarity arrives, it's too late to undo the damage. The internet wants villains and victims. Real life is messier than that. The game told his truth, but he told it after expectations were formed, after a child was involved, and after the imbalance was locked in. Shanice believed she was different, not because she was naive, but because belief was encouraged just enough to keep her there. And Evelyn trusted that her daughter would be treated with more care than history suggested. That combination is how people get hurt. Now the conversation is shifting again. Less shock, more reflection. People aren't asking who won anymore. They're asking, what does this teach? And the lesson is uncomfortable, especially for women watching. Pregnancy does not equal commitment. Privacy does not equal protection. And being chosen in words means nothing without actions. This story didn't go viral because it was messy. It went viral because it was painfully familiar. And that's why it hit so hard. No one walked away clean. No one walked away unscathed. But one thing is clear. The truth came out, and it can't be unheard. Sometimes the loudest warning isn't a red flag. It's a calm voice telling you exactly who they are. And believing them before it costs you everything. #HardTruths, #celebrity lessons, #reality check.